mayors, city councilmen, county supervisors, and others because they're your representatives, and I deal first and foremost with them, not to the exclusion of others, but certainly I think it's my duty to do so. So in the formation and functioning of this partnership, I obviously would expect, as is the case in the San Pedro partnership, very significant involvement by the mayor, city council, county supervisors, and others. I just wanted to clear that up, and I'd be glad to answer questions or comments about that with you. I wanted to talk about 4 issues with you very briefly, then I want to respond to questions that you have. First of all, I'm sure you saw yesterday and today that the North Koreans have launched now 7 missiles. It's very serious, and that's why I bring it up to you. The North Koreans are ruled by a person who is judged by most to be not, by some to be insane, but very smart in his actions and his behavior. And he's obviously trying to get our attention. And apparently he's unhappy because we won't engage in 2-party talks with him instead of 6-party talks. Now that sounds a little arcane to you, but the North Koreans have always tried to have dealings with us on an equal basis and exclude the South Koreans. And the 6-party talks, which is Russia, China, Japan, the United States, North and South Korea, has been the framework for these talks. Now why are we so concerned? First of all, the main missile, as you know, the one that was supposed to have capability to hit the United States or Hawaii or Alaska, failed after about 30 seconds. Well, that's good news, but the bad news is they always learn from these tests. We've had test failures in the past. So this is a very dangerous situation. Now, why is it that we don't just go in and take out their missiles? Well, one of the reasons is, among others, is, as many of you know, on the border between North and South Korea, they have literally thousands of artillery pieces that are embedded in caves, which are very difficult, if not impossible, for us to destroy. And in the case of a war between North and South Korea, or us and North Korea, we would prevail. But Seoul, with I think 6 million people in it, is within artillery range of North Korea. So there would be a tremendous, horrendous situation if they decided to respond. And again, this is the most oppressive regime on earth. They have reduced the size of an average person in North Korea is now 3 inches shorter than the average size of South Korea because of this incredible failed state situation that they have. Well, first of all, we tried bribing them back in 1994 under the Clinton administration. We provided them with hundreds of millions of dollars worth of food, fuel oil, etc., in return for which they were supposed to stop their reprocessing and development of nuclear capability. Well, they didn't. They cheated, and it was unverifiable, and I wouldn't remind you of this because I was right at the time, and I argued strenuously against it because it was not verifiable, and they went ahead with their movement towards it. So I would go to a 2-party talk with them just because they are demanding it. Now, the key to this is China. China is the only nation that really has significant influence over North Korea. And it's time we told our Chinese, the Chinese, that they have to, if they're interested in peace in the region, rein in the North Koreans. The Japanese have no recourse but to develop their own missile capability if they're threatened by North Korea. They will also have to develop ballistic missile defenses. And by the way, this is also an argument for the United States of America to continue our development of missile defenses. And as this nuclear capability spreads around the world, and I'll be glad to talk about Iran if you want to later in our discussions, but it's obviously becoming a larger and larger problem. Nations acquiring nuclear capability and the missiles with which to deliver, which argues for us to develop missile defense systems, which we've had a lot of difficulty doing. It's a very difficult technology, but I think we have to continue. The second issue I want to talk to you about is spending. My friends, I come to you as a proud Republican to tell you that I'm embarrassed and ashamed that we have allowed spending to lurch completely out of control. I've often said that Congress in the United States, our Congress spends money like a drunken sailor, but I never knew a sailor drunk or sober with the imagination of some of our members of Congress today. My favorite pork barrel project lately was the $3 million we decided to spend to study the DNA of bears in Montana. I don't know if that was a paternity issue or a criminal issue, but we shouldn't be spending this kind of money. We've had a huge expansion in the size of government and in spending, and we've got to stop it, and stop it now. Vetoed the highway bill in 1984. It had 52 earmarked projects on it. And when he vetoed it, he said, "I haven't seen this much work since I gave out blue ribbons at the Iowa State Fair." This last highway bill had 6,140 earmarked projects on it. One of them being the now famous Bridge to Nowhere, which you are all aware of, the bridge in Alaska, a $233 million bridge to an island with 50 people on it. We figured we could have bought every one of those residents a Learjet and saved money. And you know, you laugh and you cry because it's your money, and most of all, it's mortgaging our children's futures. Because when we continue to run up these massive deficits, it's our kids that are going to pay the bill. And I hope that the President of the United States will start vetoing some of these big spending bills and get this back under control. The third issue I want to talk to you about, the reason why some of you came here tonight, is the issue of immigration reform. First of all, you know that the system is broken. Our borders are not secure. It is a product of 40 or 50 years of failed government policy. It is a federal responsibility. And the first responsibility of government, particularly after 9/11, is to secure our borders. And we must do that. And we are all in agreement that that's our first and most important priority. Now, where there may be differences of opinion here is whether that is sufficient or not to do the job of preventing illegal immigration into this country. Remember, we also have a northern border from which, if you read the news recently, 3 terrorists came across from Canada and were down in Atlanta. So, do we believe that just securing our border is sufficient? Now, there's many of us, including the President, that believe that we need to take additional measures. And one of them is a temporary guest worker program. Now, let me just describe to you very briefly how that would work. If a person who is an employer advertised a job in the United States over the internet and other ways, and no American came forward to take that job after 60 days, then that employer could enter into a contract with someone in another country, let's say Mexico. That person would go to our embassy with the contract and get a biometric tamper-proof visa. We have the technology for that now. And then that person would come and work under that contract. As long as that person worked, they could stay here. When they stopped working, they'd have to go back to the country that they came from. Now, why is the tamper-proof biometric visa so important? It's so important because right now, as many of you know, people come to employers with counterfeit Social Security cards, birth certificates, which are excellent counterfeiting. And you can't expect the employer to know whether that's a good document or not. When the word spreads on the south of our border that the only way you can get a job in the United States of America if you have this tamper-proof visa, then they will stop coming because there will be no job here. And if an employer does hire someone without that, then that employer should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. I hope you will think about that. What do you do about the 11 million people that are washing around America and have come here illegally because of failed government policies? It isn't the mayor's fault, or the city council's fault, or the county supervisor's fault. It's the federal government's fault. And so, what do you do about it? Well, there's 3 choices as far as I can tell. One is to leave the status quo, and I don't think that we want to do that. 11 million people living in America illegally. 3 million, they have 3 million children who